All right, what we're working on today, we're gonna try to salvage some of these old pine logs that we have and make a piece of countertop with it. We're gonna shoot for a live edge slab about 80 inches long. So the piece that we want to finish out about 18 to 20 inches wide. So the one that we have to work with is gonna be this big guy right, and of course it's gonna be right in the middle of the pile. So we're gonna get the tractor fired up, drag this thing out, cut it to length. It is way longer than what we need. So we'll drag it out, cut it how we want, and get it over the mill, get it kind of clocked, and go from there. So we're going to show you the process of getting this on the mill and trying to get a finished product out of it. And we need to get to that center log, so I'm just going to use our cant hook, roll these out of the way so I can get our logging chain around there. So I'm just going to use the hook. Actually, I might even be able to do this by hand. They're balanced well enough. No, actually easier than I thought. I might need the hook with this big guy though. Well, for sure. Well, the smaller ones didn't have many knots on them. Oh, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. I might have to take the tractor and just kind of knock it over with the forks. But we need to get this chain wrapped around and we're gonna drag it out. We'll use these cedar posts kind of as rollers to keep it up out of the dirt. All right, so we got this little drawbar set up. This with a clevis. This is a bit bent up. The nice thing, having this little drawbar we got from Tractor Supply, the nice thing, this will bend before you'll mess up your 3-point arms. So just in case, more of a, maybe as a safety feature, maybe this little chintzy, we're picking something up that was too heavy for the tractor, so this was bending before we mess something else up internally. So keep that in mind. Your lift capacity, you might mess this up. So we learned the hard way, but it's still gonna do the job for what we're doing here. This log chain's nice. It has this big hook on this side and has the grab hook. So make sure when you're using these log chains that you're using this properly. When I was a way younger kid, I didn't understand how these actually worked, and I wanted to try to hook this inside of the loop, which is never good. You're never gonna wanna try to hook that in. The chain goes through the link and it gets a nice tight fit, so that's the proper way to set that up. I like having that facing upwards, so as we're pulling, there's no way for that to like fall out on accident or anything like that. And the big hook, you can hook it on anything like this clevis, or I probably could hook this right up to the drawbar, which we might not have enough length in this case, but it's nice having a chain set up this way instead of two of these. If we had that set up here, we have to pull it through and hook it back to itself, and we might not actually have the length. So we'll get this drug out and get it cut up to length. All right, as we drug that out, I didn't take into consideration how much of this would be digging into the ground. So if you can see in front of there, it was just tearing the shit out of the grass. So we're gonna use the same drawbar. I'm gonna rehook the chain onto here just to give it a little bit of lift, and we're gonna use one of these old cedar posts, more of as a roller, to get it up out of the dirt, then cut it to length. So one of the little snafus here. I'm only pushing down on here. I have the 3-point arms. It is adjustable on the how fast that goes down. I have it set really slow, so when we're using the 3-point auger, that it goes down really slow as we drill down. So if you still have it set really low, you have to just put a little extra pressure down to get it going down. You can adjust that. I just didn't feel like doing it because I like having it slow. It's not that inconvenient. So we're just gonna rehook this and use the 3-point to pick that back up. So we're just gonna feed this chain back through. And use the 3-point to pick that up. So we're just gonna get a little creative here. we don't quite have the height. The diameter of that log is so big. We got this one started. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do to make things work. Use the other post to ram it through. Oh yeah, that's all the way through. So now we'll let it back down, readjust. Well, actually, now that it's hooked up, I'll just pull it like that. All right, now that we have that out far enough, like I said, we only need about 80 inches. So we're gonna grab the tape measure and the chainsaw, figure out what of this log we need to cut. We're not cutting the whole thing. That's extra wear and tear on the blade that we don't need, and just more work that we don't have to do right now. So that's why we're gonna cut it to length. As we took this out of the woods, we cut it long, just in case a scenario like this. The longer you have it, you can always cut it back. You obviously can't make it longer, you know, when you need something longer. So the one thing I'm going to look for in the finished product that we have when we're going to put on the sawmill, you want to add a little bit extra to it, because in this circumstance, the butt isn't perfectly flush. So we want to make sure we got a couple inches there. Plus, once we cut into the log, it might check a little bit on the end. So we're going to add a little bit to it. So I always like carrying my trusty Sharpie. So we're just marking here. If I can actually hold this in place, putting it on the top would be a better idea. So there is 80 inches. I'm gonna go a little extra. We'll mark that at 82 inches. We got it marked. So we're gonna fire up our trusty steel 044. Finishing our cut is where the tension is going to be, so we can see that we have it supported here and all the rest of the weight is on the back end. So as I make that cut, it's going to want to squeeze here, so I'm going to have to finish the cut through the bottom. So there we go, we got it cut down to length. I'm going to let the 3-point down. We're going to come back, get the pallet forks underneath, and bring it over to the sawmill. One of the hard things running the tractor, trying to get the logs in here, is you really cannot see well on the tips of the forks. So I'm really in here a little bit too far. So you want to make sure that your forks are not hitting your tracks when you come in, because if you're banging up these tracks, the whole mill is going to be a little bit wompy. But I need to set up like a camera or something up high. It's just really hard to tell what the heck you got going on. So I'll see if I can get here off by hand. And I'll just use my cant hook. We'll get this rolled in place, and we'll kind of get it clocked how we want. So we got on there good enough for now. I'll get the tractor out of place, and we'll show you how we're going to set this up and how we're going to dog it for the material that we're looking for. All right, now that we get the log on our bunks, what we're looking at, since we're making a countertop, really what we want is the widest piece that we can. So with the way we have it set on the mill right now, you can almost see this thing's kind of an oval. So what we want, measuring it this way, we have 20.5 inches, and measuring it crossways the other way, we barely have 19. So what I want to do is have this plane here where it's the widest. I want that running parallel with the ground here. So when we take that center chunk out of the middle, then we can get the widest piece possible. So what I'm going to try to do is get this turned to where it's as wide as it possibly can be, which I think is going to be right about in there. So you can see I have it turned there. I should have marked it. So it's actually 21 inches that way. So now we're going to get it pushed in, get it dogged, and start taking our slabs out. Because you guys did see we drug that, we kind of messed up, drug it in the dirt. That's something to take into consideration. This did sit around for a while. So anywhere where we're going to cut, there might have some dirt on it, we're just going to go through. I got these gloves on. We're going to knock this dirt off because really, you know, you hate doing it on your chainsaw, but when you got the band mill like this, if you got a big chunk of dirt, man, it really just kills that band. Then you got to be messing around, changing a new band to get more cuts. So we're just going to clean that off real quick, rub it all down, get that dirt off there, dog it up, make our cuts, and we'll see what the material looks like. I have not cut into with all these, like I said, this sat and had all these little worms. You can really see it's prominent right here on the side. It had these worms in there, and when the logger dropped these off, these were so big and heavy I actually couldn't move them reasonably with my trailer and pick them up with the tractor to get them onto the trailer. I had a logger move these over, and when he brought them over, these big fat worms were falling out of these logs. So it's going to be interesting to cut in here and see what this material actually looks like. All right, now that we have it oriented with considering the width, the way the log is shaped, to get the maximum width of the material in place, we also have to consider, since we want to leave a live edge on the face of this countertop, and we need it obviously square on the back to flush up against the wall, what is going to be the back and what's going to be the front. So we're taking into consideration the tangent of the log on both sides. So you can kind of see this one has a little bit of a dip here, which is going to work out just fine with the layout. And we have pretty much the maximum width all the way down here. So that looks pretty good. But we're going to look on the other side of this log, and we're going to notice something a little bit different here. We have these big knots, you know, sticking out here, and it really has more dips going on, which maybe in a certain circumstance, if it were a really thick mantle piece, it adds a little bit more character. But since this is going to be a countertop for like a bar height situation, that we want it a little more uniform, we're going to make sure that this other side is going to be the live edge that we want. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our top slab off. We're going to turn the whole log. So where we took this slab is going to be against the side here, so it's vertical. And then we're going to knock this side off, take another slab off of here, so it's going to be our back. Turn it again, and then start making 2-inch cuts. Like I said, we're going to use the other pieces for some landscape. It's going to kind of go around some landscaping. We'll just throw those off to the side for now, working from either way until we get to the middle to make sure we get our maximum material out of the middle. So we're going to get the mill fired up and make some cuts. All right, so now we made that first slab cut. All right, let the mill sit. So we're gonna see what this looks like inside here. So you can see all these holes. You never know what they're gonna look like. The coloring is kind of interesting too. So it's been raining a lot. It's pretty wet. I don't know how that really affects how this soaks in. So it'll be interesting once this dries out and it's sanded down what the finish is really going to look like. I think it'll be kind of cool when it's done. All right, so we're looking for a finished product between at least 18 inches and up to 20 inches. So what we're looking at here with this log being 21 inches on our max, we're really shooting, we're going to try to get this 20 inches. So we're going to go on the other side. with the orientation that we already discussed, that we're trying to get the most out of here, this log did have a little bit of a curve, so it's sitting on 2 bunks and off of this bunk. So what we did here is measure up, and now we're at 20 inches off of the bunk to the blade here. So we're gonna make this first cut. But if you look real close, the log dips a little bit in the middle. So we're gonna make this first cut. We're trying to be conservative to get the most material that we can. So we're gonna make this first slab cut and see if we don't have a flat cut all the way through. And like we said, we want this 2 inches out of the middle. So, you know, if we don't have a real wide slab that we're taking off here, that really doesn't matter. We're only worried about the center. So we at least have to have 2 inches wide out of the center. So we're gonna make this first cut and kind of see where we're at. We can go down, you know, like I said, as low as 18 inches. So if we don't make it all the way, we're just gonna make minimal cuts down until we have at least 2 inches wide out of that center. So we're gonna get it fired back up and make a few cuts. See, that's a little bit what I was worried about right there. It dipped down. We're still going to go all the way through just to kind of see, gauge where we're at. So the big end had a little bit more of a flare than what I thought. So we can see we're really minimal. But I think we'll bump it down maybe 3/4 of an inch and try that again. So we're going to want to make sure we're looking at our scale stick. We made that cut. We're right at, we were just above that 18-inch mark. So we're going to get it cranked up so we're not hitting our band. Where the hell am I hitting at here? Oh, my slab fell down in the track. Get that out of the way. So the way I always kind of think about it, I get back, I reset to where I was at, so I was just perfectly at 18 inches. So I want to be down 3/4 of an inch. So there's half, there's 3/4. So that's going to bring, if we measured that was going to be a 20-inch slab, so now we're 3/4 of an inch down. So now our maximum that we're going to be at is 19 1/4, which is still well within the range where we wanted to be. All right, now let's look at that. So you can see that was about perfect. I mean, there's really minimal material here. If we would have went only a 1/2 inch, I don't know if we even would have made it. So that's going to be perfect. That'll be what's going to flush up against the wall. So now we're going to get that. So now we're going to turn that again. So we know this is going to be our backside. We're going to get this turned over. The first cut that we made is going to be flat on the bottom. And then now we're just going to work from the top down until we get to the center, to where the piece that we really want to work with, till we get there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to set the other pieces off to the side for now. So we'll get it set back up, turned, dogged in, and work our way down. All right, we got our log turned. We're going to take a slab, and then we kind of have marked where we think the widest part of the log is, right down here. So we're going to take a few cuts till we get down there. And what we want that centerpiece is what our main goal, and that's what we're going to work at. So we're going to work our way down and until we get to that widest part, and then go from there. So we get this fired back up. always just maybe a little too mindful on trying to get the most material out of the log. So I have a tendency to waste the cuts. But I guess it is what it is. That's one nice thing with sawing your own material on your own time. You can really see, I don't know, it's almost like a kind of a blue-green color in here now. It's a little bit different than those other cuts. Even a little different. So I really be curious what the center piece is going to look like. So I'm just going to kind of measure down now. It's almost 6 inch. We're just gonna leave it like that. I think I can salvage a board out of the middle. All right. So on the top of a log this big, you really have a lot of the kind of the kerf on both sides. As we flip that over and wipe that off, you still have a pretty good wide board on here, so we'll make something out of this. We'll get this out of the way. The nice thing with having the length that we have here with the sawmill, I kind of use the other side for storage, so we'll just pick this up, set it off to the other side for now. All right, I'll make this cut. Let's see where we're at. So as we look at the center here, I don't know if the worms really couldn't get to the heart of this tree. We have a little bit on the edge here, but not so much in the center, so that's kind of interesting. So now we're going to see what we have for a width here, which we're a little short of our goal here. It's a little more than 18. But as we can see, if you look from the top down, I think if we just, what we're going to end up taking, I think, is just a little tiny cut to get to the maximum width here, I think, is what we're going to do. But at the same time, we have to take into consideration we're making a 2-inch cut. So I got to think about this. If we take 2 inches, we really want the maximum to be in the middle. So if we take 2 inches, we got to make sure that maximum width is right in the center. You know, if you think about it.
It'll work out better to have the maximum bottom.
Yeah, that's something. Are you still recording?
Yeah,
so that would have been something to consider with the way the bracketry is going. Let's shut that off so now we're kind of figuring this out as we go here. The reason that we wanted the 18 inches is because of the bracket with the way the hardware is for mounting this. The hardware was 18 inches. That's why we want a minimum 18 inches because the hardware sticks out that far. So we want to at least be that far. So we're hoping that the bottom cut is going to be at 18. So if the top was a little bit shy of that, but the bottom was at 18, then we're still going to be looking pretty good.
For a traditional live edge, how does that generally work? Do you want the widest part at the bottom so it has like a natural chamfer to it? Or?
So I think that's all going to depend on the end user. In my mind, you kind of have the apex of the log in the center.
Okay, because I guess I kind of like the idea of having a natural chamfer.
But that's all user dependent. So, you know, when you're custom doing your own stuff, you know, you're the client, so you're the boss. So that's a nice thing with doing this. So we're, like I said, we're kind of figuring this out as we go, and we can cut it how we want. But as you can see, I'm really happy with how this is looking, at least. You know, it is nice when you're able to cut material off of your own property to use for your own projects. So you kind of have that feeling of self-accomplishment. You cut the log down, you're using it on your own project for your own homestead. You know, really is something pretty cool. But with the way, since this has been sitting a little bit, it's going to have something a little bit different. You know, whether this is really ideal to the normal person that goes to the store, are they going to pick out a log that maybe has some of these defects? Maybe not. But then you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember when we cut this down and we learned not to let this stuff sit, or it has this cool coloration to it. You know, once you sand this down, and maybe this is even going to get epoxy filled, or you know, there's all sorts of stuff you can do with this. Maybe even look cooler than what you can get. So maybe just not everybody's going to have something like that. So I think it's going to look pretty cool. We're going to have to sit here and think about how we want to make that cut, get it lined up, and then make the cut for the piece that we want. All right, so after taking some measurements, I think what we figured out is that this next one might be perfect, or it might not. Either way, we're going to take a couple more cuts at 2 inches thick, and we're just going to pick out the best one that's going to suit our needs. So we're going to fire back up and make some more cuts. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to measure the top of this, which is going to be the same as the bottom of the other one. So at one end, well, we're 18 3/4, 18 1/4. I'm going to flip this sideways. Almost 18 1/2. And it did taper down here, which we did have this, luckily, it turned the right way. This is the one side where it could taper down and the width wasn't as much of a factor. So it was down at 17. And then over here we're at 19 inches. So this piece right here, I think is really gonna fit the ticket here. And honestly, with this being up, we kind of got a cool knot here. With the way this sliced these knots that were on the side, I'm not as keen on the way these look. I mean, maybe that's for some people, but if we were to use that one as the top, I just don't like the way that looks out. That looks, I think this one looks a little bit better, and the width works out to be perfect. So I think this is the one that we're going to go with. Obviously, you know, it's rough cut, it needs some sanding and all that stuff. The edge, and since we are leaving this a live edge, I mean, I don't know how much we'll hit this with the draw knife. It really just might get sanded down a little bit, because we do want to leave, you know, as much character on there as possible. So maybe just a light sanding and you know, sanding the top and everything. So we're gonna go make some more cuts on the rest of this, but this is really what we were looking for out of the work, with all this messing around with getting the log out of the pile and everything. So we just want to brush some of this sawdust off of here just to kind of see what we're looking at. Boy, it's even got some nice red here on the end. Yeah, I think this is really going to turn out cool. So if you got your own mill, this is kind of the cool projects that you can do for yourself or for your friends, or, you know, obviously if you're making some of this stuff, the more money is to be made on if you're finishing the stuff out to sell a finished product, you'll be making more money. But even selling some of this stuff as it is, you know, a slab like this posted on Facebook Marketplace, you know, so if you're getting these mills, it's not just for making your own projects. You can be obviously doing this stuff for money, cutting other people's material, but getting some of this bigger stuff and selling cool products like this. So we're going to kind of get wrapped up with this video. If you guys like it, hit the like button, subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next video.